Nintendo has made a huge announcement.
The Switch Lite is on its way.
What do we think about it?
Hot take.
This has been on the horizon for a really long time, and we've talked about it several episodes. We just really wanted this thing, and it's finally here.
Yeah, we wanted some news about it because we've been hearing about a Lite and Pro version of the Switch for, it seems like, about a year now.
Yeah.
Or so. And more things have been coming out recently, different accessories for a possible Switch Lite, because I guess some manufacturers had gotten the dimensions of it and stuff, so people were saying that it's just on the horizon. It's here.
Yeah, yeah.
You know? And it came, sorry to cut you off, came, like we were talking about before, shortly after E3, which were like, it's possible. They could do that because they did that with the 3DS, and that's what they've done.
Yep. So I think, again, it probably would have been smarter for them to announce something at E3 because, well, nobody else announced anything at E3, so it would have actually been something exciting to talk about. Here's the crazy thing about this, folks. The things we thought they wouldn't do and some of the things we thought they would do, they did and didn't do. It's a really confusing mix here. What you might be assuming happened is that Nintendo just took their regular Switch and made it smaller. That's not what happened, though.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different things in the form factor and the use cases for the Switch, as you said. It's coming in slightly smaller than the original Switch.
Yep.
It still doesn't seem like a product that you're going to put in your back pocket and be, heading to your buddy's house or something. It's not as simple as a sort of clamshell design that the 3DS line of systems and stuff had. That was a little bit more portable. I still see this as something that you're going to have to get some sort of a case for, but it is smaller.
It's smaller, so at least the case you're going to get is going to be smaller, hopefully, than the Switch case you have now for your modern Switch.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So anyway, the smaller form factor, it's nice in that, okay, maybe it is a little bit more portable, but I believe that this product, and I think you're thinking the same way as well, is aimed at a very specific audience.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, this is for every Nintendo fan out there, right? Maybe not so much for people that have an original Switch, but we'll get into that more later. But this very much feels like it's being made specifically for a younger audience, or to dig into that audience. Smaller price point. And a smaller hardware, right? So those little hands, those tiny hands, can press all the buttons. The original Switch it's a bit of a beast.
Yes, it is.
Right?
I mean, it's a bigger one. I've always had, I always get hand cramps using it because it's so thin and it's wider. So I'm hoping that this kind of holds better in my hand. From what I can tell, there's one huge thing that they've changed that I'm a big fan of. The D-pad.
Yay.
We finally have a D-pad, but there is a caveat with that. Now, the original Switch, you can take off the controllers to the left and right, but because you can't do that anymore, they were just like, well, if you're not holding it as a controller sideways, there's no reason to have those as buttons individually.
Yeah.
So now you actually get a D-pad.
They were never that crazy into, no, the D-pad on these will always be the 4 buttons, because we had like the Pro controllers and things, so we knew a D-pad was possible. But it's nice to finally have a Switch unit undocked in your hand that has a D-pad that is an official Nintendo D-pad. There were other controllers that you could get, third-party controllers like the Hori pads that had the D-pads as well. I want a Nintendo D-pad.
Yeah.
And that's what we got here.
Now, there are 3 colors here, mellow yellow, blue turquoise, and, okay, I guess we'll just go with gray.
Grayish, black, charcoal?
Charcoal? I don't know. I'll go for charcoal. Sure. But we also have another version that they didn't announce in the video, which is the Pokemon Sword and Shield Edition, which looks like someone scribbled a bunch of stuff on the back and then made everything blue and pink.
Okay.
It's cool.
It's not actually called the Sword and Shield Edition. It's the names of the Pokemon, which we're not going to try to say right now.
Until they say it, I'm not saying it.
Yeah, I do like the color configuration of this one the best. My excitement for that game, the new Pokemon Sword and Shield games, has wavered a little bit. So the critters on the back are not necessarily grabbing me, but I do like the color, the blue and the pink, with the separate sides of the console itself.
I don't know, man. If you really care about Pikachu, just slap a sticker on the yellow one and call it a day. I mean, like, that's all you really need to do. This here is being made primarily for every single person in the world that's going to go buy the new Pokemon game, which is going to be about everyone, and I think that's really why this exists. I mean, this system is coming in much cheaper than a traditional Nintendo Switch, and it's going to be focused primarily, as far as I can tell, at people that want to play the new Pokemon game, and that's what makes this such a good idea.
Right. They have a laser focus on a game that is very much known as a handheld title.
Sure.
But I'm sure that this is the seedling to branch into the possibility of selling a lot more hardware, right? Like I was talking about earlier, they already had kind of the hardcore Nintendo fan base or people that saw what the Switch could do, grab that original console, but Nintendo needed to sell more hardware, because if they sell more hardware, they can sell more software, right? And their whole outlook was that they wanted more than one Switch per household. This is a great way to do that. This is a great way also to have a household that, let's say, the mom and dad don't want the kid accessing the TV, but they still want to get them a Switch, right? Yep. So there you go. It's an all-in-one. You don't have to bug your parents to be using the big screen all the time. It's in your hand. But we're losing some stuff.
We are definitely.
So what are we losing, Shane?
So this isn't just a straight transfer over from old Switch to new Switch. You're going to be losing HD rumble. You're going to be losing some form of motion control, if not all of it.
Yeah, the IR sort of sensors.
The IR sensors.
There still is a gyroscopic sensor within the unit itself. So you're going to be able to do things like in Pokemon Let's Go, you did have to use the controller or your little Pokeball, and the sensor within that would help you catch the Pokemon. But it's going to be handheld mode here, so you can move the gyroscope around.
Sure.
But there are specific games they were talking about that may not possibly be compatible because of this new configuration, right?
I mean, likely Nintendo's probably going to release updates to those games, but I mean, the ones that can 1-2 switch could work on here. You just need the Joy-Cons separately. So why would you do that? Have you ever played 1-2 switch? Don't. You don't need to play it.
Right.
This is good. Nintendo's released a system that makes you not have to play 1-2 switch. This is an upgrade.
But they actually used that as a use case within the video itself. They were like, but if you do want to play 1-2 switch on this thing, and you don't, but if you do want to play, you buy the Joy-Cons separate, and you can play it by propping up this console on a pillow or something, because this is weird to me, Shane.
Yeah.
They didn't include the kickstand. Like, it's so simple.
That is true.
Of all the things that they've taken out of this, I kind of understand they want to dial back the hardware within it so that you reach the $199.99 price point.
I have a theory as to why they didn't include it, but we'll go on there.
Okay, so yeah, there's no kickstand, but you could still use it in the same sort of form factor as if it did have a kickstand.
Yes.
And then, yes, you can pair other controllers to the console.
Now, something else you're not getting is the ability to use a dock. You can't actually have video out functionality on here. This is going to be a big deal for some because it means that you're only going to be able to play Nintendo Switch games with this Nintendo Switch Lite in the portable mode. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people might not be a big fan of that because one of the big problems you're going to have to deal with is that, hey, look, it's a portable system, but sometimes I want to take it home and get the better graphics from the docked experience. So every game you play on the Switch is going to be portable. I think that's okay, though, but why didn't they include a kickstand? Now, a lot of people have been saying, well, it's just because you can't take the Joy-Cons off the left and right. I don't think that's the reason why.
Ooh.
I think it's a little bit,
yeah.
But I believe that over the course of the last 2 years, I've been seeing a lot of people sending me pictures personally about their Switches starting to crack. On the top, there's a little ventilation fan, and because of the way that the body is designed, you see that crack kind of go down, because around that area, that's also where you have the processor, so it starts to heat up a lot, and it gets hot and cold, and eventually you start to get cracks. So that seems to happen a lot around the kickstand area.
Yeah.
So once you remove that and have a much more solid surface, you have a much more stable device.
Sure.
Plus, what are we not getting on here? Removable Joy-Cons. So this whole thing is going to feel like a much more solid portable system. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there that might not be too happy about the idea of not being able to take the Joy-Cons off left and right, but both Adam and I, actually, to be fair, you've owned a Nintendo Switch a little bit less longer than I have.
Yeah, I think I've played mine a little bit more than you have, though.
Yeah, okay, well, Nintendo sent me the Switch before it came out, so technically, I've been using a Nintendo Switch a lot longer than most.
I could have possibly gotten a slight revision of the Switch, depending on, because some of the issues that had propped up, I wound up getting my Switch after that.
Yeah.
So we had heard about some of the things, like the cases being brittle,
yeah.
The casings of the hardware. I'm not sure if that changed between yours and mine.
So I've had issues with the Joy-Cons where they disconnect a little bit and stuff like that.
Right.
Now, what's great about that problem is that usually what you do is you send the Joy-Con over to Nintendo and they just send you a replacement or they fix it. With this, because it's all built together, you're not going to have disconnect issues because it's probably all wired to make it a lot cheaper. But here's the beautiful part about this. we've been using them for a while. I've noticed that the Joy-Cons are loose. They just are. It's a moving mechanical system. Over time, it's going to get loose. It's happened to you. You told me that like the Joy-Con kind of
dude. It's physics and friction, man.
Yeah.
Eventually, some things are just gonna not hold as tight as they should be. And yes, like we were discussing a little bit earlier today, I baby my Switch quite a bit. There was an incident. I was told by one of our producers. I was told that there was an incident where the Switch may have slipped. But other than that, I've babied this thing, and the left Joy-Con, I'm having disengaging issues with it, where
Sure.
you just kind of sort of poke it up, and it'll disengage a little bit too easily. And for someone that really takes care of things, that's a little.
It's gonna happen, but it's gonna happen to everyone. Look, if you've been using a Switch for the past 2 years, likely you've noticed little problems like that too. Ladies and gentlemen, here's your answer. It's a solid state Switch. I'm coining that. This here is going to be the thing that's going to last a lot longer. I had my theories about the Switch way earlier on. A lot of things I wasn't right about, but a lot of the things about the mechanical aspects of how that would last over time have tended to be a little bit correct. But with a Switch like this, with no moving parts, this is going to be the system that lasts a lot longer physically. That's why I'm so excited about this.
Well, one of the other things that I'm excited about, you're talking about things lasting longer, is that the battery within the new Switch is going to be getting you more battery oomph. And this is the thing that's probably the most exciting get, maybe for someone that already has a Switch that is possibly thinking about getting this one as well. If you want to play games like Breath of the Wild, reports are coming out that you get about 3 hours in handheld mode with the original Switch, and with this new Switch Lite, you're going to be getting more, around 4 hours or so, which is really nice. It's another, 25% more battery life for maybe some of the more demanding games. And if it's less demanding, then, you get, 6 or 7 hours?
Yeah, you could. I mean, look, just the idea that you get, I know for some people, maybe an hour, maybe 30 minutes doesn't sound like a very long time. That extra 30 minutes or that extra hour is enough to go, oh, I can do that one more thing in the game. It's just, it's a little bit. Increments are better. Now, the reason why I think this is happening, I haven't seen the internals of this device, but just based off of what I know, a lot of the battery was taking a lot of real estate in the main body. There are batteries on the left and right Joy-Cons because they're individual controllers.
Right.
So once you get rid of those features, you actually can expand the battery a little bit longer and take up a little bit more space.
Those controllers no longer need necessarily those separate batteries. And there's a lot of functionality, like we said, that's taken out of those. So yes, that one battery is doing more for the unit as a whole, and those controllers are probably drawing power in a much different way.
Without wireless functionality, you don't have to worry about power draw. Without HD Rumble support, which I know a lot of people are not that excited about, but think about this, HD Rumble is using energy, and the more energy you use, the more the battery's going to drain. Maybe in the future, Nintendo releases something that's a little bit more improved upon, but I kind of don't want any kind of mechanical piece inside the device that rumbles and shakes it a lot. It's just over time, I think that is going to cause problems, and I just don't want that in there. I think the way that this is makes a lot of sense to me, and if Nintendo is willing to update games that may have been reliant somewhat on HD Rumble support, I mean, look, 1-2 Switch, there's a game that requires that rumble. Like, you need it to play that game.
Are you talking about the little balls?
The little balls. There's a game where you get little. There's an invisible ball inside of a thing, and you're moving it around, and it's really cool. But they never used it again.
You won't be able to hold your Switch Lite up to your ear and or hold it and feel the little balls.
Yeah, or the invisible sandwich game. You know, I mean, like, look, guys. There's this concept out there. A lot of people are like, oh, the crazy control schemes that Nintendo can create with the Switch are kind of being limited with this platform, but people didn't care about that. They never cared about the invisible sandwich or the balls in the controller. Nobody cared about those things.
I do worry, though, about dialing things back a little bit, in that maybe some developers were like, no, we have a really new and interesting way of maybe having a gaming experience. Think about, like, in Mario Party, you could configure the screens in a separate way or in a different way for like the top-down mode, and that was kind of cool.
Sure.
Like, I want more options for developers to place into their games, and this could be a bit of a barrier if they're like, well,
it's gonna be. Yeah.
It depends on how it depends on how it sells.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
If there's not that many Switch Switch Lite units out there, maybe that's not a consideration. If the Switch Lite, oh my gosh, there's a huge boom for some reason, and it winds up selling a heck of a lot of consoles, people will definitely dial back the sort of new and improved sort of gaming methods that they could have done with the very innovative, the more innovative hardware that the original Switch had.
Now, I personally think there is going to be one big problem that might happen from this specific set of hardware. Now, obviously, creating a fracture in the user base and in the average consumer to know the difference between a Switch Lite and a regular Switch, that can be a problem. Maybe if you're watching this show, you probably know a lot about video games. So the concept of you going to a store and being confused about a Switch Lite or regular Switch, well, that's probably something that's not going to happen with you. But maybe you have a friend who doesn't watch shows like Hot Take, which they probably should be, and then they wouldn't know that difference between these two things. So that can happen, right? Those kind of problems.
And it's easy to say Nintendo has had problems with this in the past and things have been okay, but it's like, well, you should learn from the past a little bit. If you dive back, we've had messaging issues with the Wii and Wii U, but also other handhelds, like the 3DS line was very confusing for some folks that are not in the know. The 2DS, the 3DS, the new 3DS, the new 2DS.
Sure.
And this I would say is slightly less confusing because it still has the Switch name to it, but there is, I think, a necessity in a tiny conversation to be had with the person picking this up. Okay, you're getting this. You realize this doesn't play on your TV, right?
Yeah.
You realize that these Joy-Con do not disconnect. Oh, look on the back of the game cart because it has to be played in handheld mode. The games have to be played in handheld mode.
Look, I see you're buying a Nintendo Switch Lite and you're also buying a Labo kit. Well, that's not gonna work. Put the Labo back.
I would always say put the Labo back.
You probably would.
But hey, you're right. You're right.
There's going to be issues like that where people are going to not realize that at the beginning. It doesn't matter if you don't think it's going to be that big of an issue. It's going to happen. And there's going to be vocal consumers out there that are going to be very upset about their purchases, not realizing that what they've done isn't compatible with the software they want to buy. Despite the fact I don't really believe there's a lot of people out there going, I want to buy the Nintendo Switch for Labo and 1-2 Switch.
Yeah.
It's Zelda. It's all those other games.
I think, that's pinched into a smaller use case. And I don't want to blow up those problems to an extent that I don't think they are. But I do still believe very much that there's a conversation that needs to be had when, like, let's say a grandparent or someone that's not in the know for some reason is picking up this product. Other than that, though,
there's one more issue.
Oh, go ahead.
There is one more issue.
Go ahead.
Okay, this one is kind of more complex. But folks, bear with me here. If you're making video games for the Switch right now, let's say you're a video game developer, you are making the Switch games as they stand with the concept in mind that it can be played on a dock system or it can be played portably. That means that, okay, you know what, portably the game doesn't run too well, but if you get it on docked, maybe it's got a better frame rate, a higher resolution for sure. But now with this Switch Lite, people are only going to be getting those portable experiences. So game developers might be a little bit upset about thinking, okay, this system now limits, I now have to make games that work perfectly in portable mode when maybe that wasn't always the intent.
But I think the way that Nintendo made the original hardware, like it should always work well in both modes. So I think that's far more the developers' sort of issues if they can't possibly do that. They have to take every iteration of the hardware into consideration.
Consider that right now we're getting into the next generation of systems. We're going to be seeing the PlayStation 5. We're going to be seeing the Xbox 2. Hopefully people buy it. We're going to be seeing these next systems, and it's going to be a huge drive for people to look at newer technologies. Both Sony and Microsoft have constantly repeated ray tracing. We're doing ray tracing. All the research we've done on ray tracing, it takes a lot of power to make that work. I mean, a crazy amount. And you're not going to be able to get good frame rates even at higher resolutions like 4K with ray tracing turned on. So for the Nintendo Switch, seeing those games come on board, they can turn off ray tracing and stuff like that. But now game developers, if this system does take off and it becomes a huge seller, those game developers are now like, oh great, now I have to make games with a lesser power in mind.
Well, I do very much believe, you can say what you want to say, but I do very much believe that as we move on into the next iteration of consoles, that that the third-party support is
Sure.
is going to begin to dwindle. Like there has to be a point where you're like, I'm sorry, Cyberpunk is not going to be like you know,
Witcher 3.
right? Well,
Witcher 3. Don't even start. Don't even start.
No.
They could get Cyberpunk. I'm not saying
There
they're
is-
gonna. They could. There's a chance. Please.
No, but no, there is still hope for third-party support as well. But I'm just saying there's going to be quite a big leap soon, and I believe that there's going to be a very clear division between the two
Yeah.
consoles, unless what is going to be the Switch Pro comes out, and it somehow is able to run. But then we have the separation issues again of, yes, it works on the Pro, but it doesn't work on these other things. So I do believe my prediction for the future is that Nintendo, the ship, like where it is kind of sailing in the same direction as the other consoles to a minute extent right now, we're going to see more of that separation as
think so.
the years move forward.
Now, there's been a lot of conversation about this finally killing the 3DS, and yeah, I mean, this is it.
Nintendo's all but said that the 3DS.
They keep going, oh, this doesn't replace the 3DS. It
Well,
does. It's done. Folks, this is the portable system. It's cheaper. You're now venturing into a cheaper category. I don't get it. What else do you do?
In their shareholder meetings, they quietly kind of just. The 3DSs have much less of an appearance there.
I agree.
So, yeah, I think this is supposed to be the replacement there. But like we had discussed before, we need to see if this is going to be a replacement for something like the 3DS. We do need to see the software support that would have been going to the 3DS being brought over here, because like I said, as those ships sail in different directions, we need fuel. We need continued software being placed on these devices.
True. Now, we know Microsoft, we know Sony.
Yep.
Sony isn't buying companies, but they're signing huge year exclusives with a whole bunch of games. We know that Microsoft is going around buying every video game company that they can possibly buy. So Nintendo has to make a lot of things in-house, has to hire a lot of people to make games, has to start working a lot faster, because in the next coming months, we're going to start to see more and more information come out from the next line of consoles. And although they've got Pokemon coming out for this platform, and that's definitely going to sell this Switch, like without a doubt, there's people out there that don't own a Switch right now. That does exist. Those people are likely going to be looking at this system and going, well, I was only ever going to play Pokemon portably. Because remember, if you were into the main series Pokemon games, you bought their portable systems. So, what do you think, folks?
Yes.
Are you excited about this Nintendo Switch, or do you think the Nintendo Switch Lite is a bad idea?
Yes, is this the product for you, or do you feel like Nintendo is kind of aiming towards an audience that isn't maybe for the typical gamer? Do you think maybe it's not for you?
Let us know what you think.